Hi there, my name's Carolyn Pitts. For over 25 years, I've been a health coach certified by the American Council on Exercise. As a health coach, I know there's a lot of conflicting, contradictory, and overwhelming information out there about how to take care of your health and particularly what to eat. So I want to help you cut through some of that noise so you can make informed decisions for yourself. A while back, I was teaching a nutrition class at a jazzercise studio, and after class, one of the participants came up to me and she said, "I'm really not happy with this class." And I said, "Oh no, why?" And she said, "Well, I didn't want all this information. I just wanted you to give me a list of foods I could eat and a list of foods I couldn't eat." And I wish it were that simple, but it's not. We're all different, and what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another. And that's just a fact of life. If there was one eating plan that worked for everyone, we would have been on it a long time ago and we wouldn't be talking about food anymore. So today I want to talk about carbohydrates because carbs have got a bit of a bad reputation. So let's dig in and explore that a little bit. And let's start with the term carbohydrate or carb. What does that mean? Where does that come from? Well, it comes from organic chemistry, and it has to do with the molecular composition of certain chemicals that have been placed under the umbrella term of carbohydrate because they combine carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen, but in different configurations. The term was officially blessed in 1969 in a document or from the Commission on the Nomenclature of Organic Chemistry. So that's where it comes from. Carbs are one of three types of macronutrients, the other two being fat and protein. Our bodies use carbohydrates to make glucose. Glucose is the energy that fuels our body. We can't live without glucose. When we look at how carbohydrates break down, they usually break down into fiber, starch, and sugar. And it's the sugar thing that I think a lot of people get all tied up about. But sugars here doesn't mean just the white stuff you stir into your coffee. Because within sugar, it breaks down into simple sugars like monosaccharides and disaccharides, which are very short chains of sugar that includes glucose. And that's why when we eat monosaccharides or disaccharides, they very quickly go from food we've ingested into glucose in our bloodstream. But carbohydrates also include longer chains of sugar, oligosaccharides and polysaccharides, which are oligosaccharides are 3 to 10 in the chain, and polysaccharides are more than 10 in a chain. And those are going to take longer for our body to break down and digest. Starch takes a while for us to break down and digest. And fiber, we don't digest it. It goes through our digestive system and comes out the other end, but it's still very important because fiber helps us to feel full and it kind of keeps the plumbing cleaned out and running well. So sometimes I hear people say things like, "Well, I don't eat carbs." And so let's play a little game and look at a couple different kinds of food, and you decide whether you think that type of food is a protein, a carb, or a fat. You ready? Okay, so the first food that we're gonna look at is milk. Fat-free or skim milk. Is it a protein, a carb, or fat? The next one, spinach. Raw baby spinach. Protein, carb, or fat? Lentils, little beans cooked from dry. Carbs, protein, or fat? Tofu, and for this example, I'm using extra firm tofu from Simple Truth. Almonds, raw, unsalted. I love almonds. I eat them every day. What do you think? Carbs, protein, or fat? And finally, almond butter, the creamy kind from Simple Truth. All right, final answer, all locked in. Okay, so let's look at it. And Yes, these were trick questions because I've got a point to make. So when we look at the milk, look at that. Almost 5 grams of carbs compared to about 3.5 grams of protein. And the information in the chart here is from the USDA. They have a website called Food Central that brings together databases from various sources. I'll put a link in the description so you can go play with that. I play with that a lot. Okay, raw baby spinach. Look at that. 2.5 grams of carbs compared to almost 3 grams of protein. So pretty close. Lentils, cooked from dry, mostly carbs, 20 grams compared to just under 9 grams of protein. The tofu, 3 grams of carbs, 9 grams of protein. So 3 times as much protein as carbs. The almonds, neck and neck with the protein and carbs, but look at the fat. Wow, and look at the fiber. And finally, the almond butter, the creamy kind, neck and neck again with the carbs and the protein. But look what happened to the fiber. It went way down because there's a difference between eating raw, unsalted almonds closer to their natural state and almond butter, which has been through a processing that, as we see, removed a lot of the fiber. So my point here that I wanted to make is that carbs are not a food group. So when we say, oh, I don't ever eat carbs, what are you talking about? Because there are so many foods in our diet that have carbohydrates in them. But all carbs are not created equal. And you know this. A donut is full of carbs. But so, my friend, is broccoli. And there's a big difference between eating a donut and eating broccoli. Broccoli's got the fiber in it. It's also got a lot of vitamins and beta carotene. It's a very different food than a donut. So not all carbs are created equal, and they don't all deserve a bad reputation. And the next point I want to make is processing matters. Is broccoli a nutritious food? What do you think? Yes or no? It depends, right? How am I going to prepare the broccoli? I can eat broccoli raw. I can chop it up and put it in a salad. I can chop it up and put it in a slaw. I can bake it, roast it. I can boil it till all the fiber goes away and drown it in butter. Or I can go to a Japanese restaurant and order vegetable tempura where they take the broccoli, they batter, dip it, and then they deep fry it. So there's a big difference between batter, dip, deep fried broccoli and fresh raw broccoli. So let's talk too about processed foods. Because when we go to the grocery store, in the middle of the grocery store, on those shelves, are a lot of boxes. And a lot of the food that is in those boxes is primarily carbohydrate food. We can be looking at crackers, breakfast cereals, cookies, snacks, foods that have been through that processing. A lot of times they take the fiber out because that helps promote shelf life, like we just saw with the almond butter. It's been processed and the fiber's been removed. And then they also will add a simple sugar for taste, because they want you to enjoy their product. They don't want you to just eat a healthy product. If it tastes terrible, you're not coming back. So they're going to put a little bit of sugar in there to make it taste better. And we see that with the almond butter too. There's a little bit of sugar that's been added, and that's a simple sugar. So foods that are highly processed are going to have less fiber and more sugar. And that, I think, contributes to some of the bad reputation that carbs have gotten over the years. But carbs are not our enemy. Broccoli is not your enemy. Fresh fruits and vegetables and produce, they are not our enemy. And over the years, I've seen them have a really bad reputation because these low-carb diets come out where people are eating extremely low quantities of carbohydrates. Those diets have been around for ages. I remember when I was a teenager in high school, my mom went on a low-carb diet. So yeah, 50 years ago. And back in the 1990s, there was an explosion of low-carb diets. People were really jumping on the bandwagon. And part of the reason they were doing that is because these diets work for people who are trying to lose weight. My friend Jay went on a low-carb diet, and he was eating cheeseburgers without the bun. He was eating plates of bacon. He was living high on the hog, and he lost so much weight. I mean, Jay looked really good. And Jay went to the doctor for his checkup, and he was so excited to go because his doctor had been on him about his weight, and he was going to show the doctor, hey, I finally lost that weight. But guess what? They checked his blood, and Jay's cholesterol had gone through the roof. So he didn't stay on the high protein diet much longer. I mean, he came off of it right after he came back from the doctor's office. I remember him coming by and telling me about it. My friend Kathy also tried the low-carb diet. She ended up in the hospital. When we don't eat enough carbohydrates, our body can make glucose because our body's built for survival. It's going to make glucose from whatever it can. If you're just feeding it a lot of protein, it's going to make glucose from that protein. And that puts a strain on our kidneys. Now, for most people, their kidneys tolerate it fine. If they didn't, then this diet would have fell out of favor a long time ago. But Kathy had a serious injury, and she'd lost one of her kidneys. And the one kidney she had left couldn't keep up with the stress. So if low-carb diets worked for everyone, we'd just all be eating them. We wouldn't have an obesity epidemic in this country, and we wouldn't have sections of diet books when you walk into any bookstore, and we wouldn't be talking about it on YouTube. So it just depends what works for people. And I'm not here to bash any particular diet. I'm just here to help you get information. One of the reasons that I think, and this is me talking because I don't know for sure, but I think one of the reasons that these low-carb diets work for people is we have to look at how are they eating before they cut their carbs. So for someone whose diet included a lot of simple sugars, and they eliminate those, they're going to see health benefits because they've cut out those cookies and crackers and breakfast cereals and those things that were highly processed, low in fiber, and had the added simple sugars. And then the other thing to think about is if you're eating low carb, that means you're eating high protein and potentially high fat. What types of foods are you eating? Are you like Jay, having a big plate of bacon for breakfast, which is loaded with sodium and saturated fat? Or are you looking for leaner sources of protein? So I think that's why, there's details, and the details matter in how we follow these different eating plans. Okay, that's a lot of information. And I'm remembering my student who came up to me and said, I don't want all this information. I just want to know what to eat. And so I'm going to direct you to 2 eating plans that you can take a look at and play around with. One is from the American Diabetes Association. It's called the Diabetes Plate Method. And I picked this one because, part of the reason that carbs have a bad reputation is the sugar, and people think, oh, if I eat a lot of carbs, I'm going to end up with diabetes. But if you look at the plate here and you look at what are they recommending, healthy, non-starchy vegetables is a big part of it. The broccoli is on there. Broccoli is a carb. And then they also have the low-fat protein sources and then other carbohydrate foods. So I'll include a link to the website in the description. You can go look at that and get more details from the website. The other one that I will share with you is from Harvard Medical School. This is the Healthy Plate. I've talked about this one in other videos as well, and I'll include the link to that one. But you can see when you look at these that carbs are a big part of it, because grains and vegetables and fruits, they're all in the carb family, right up there with the donuts and the cookies. So not all carbs are created equal. And finally, something else I want to share with you, and this comes from my background as an energy healer. I'm not just a health coach, I'm also an energy healer. And I believe that we are very complicated, interwoven body, mind, and spirit. And we can't really separate those as much as we try. When we look at what we're eating, we're focused on the body aspect of ourselves, the physical aspect. But the mind and the spirit are just as important. And I share that because my personal experience was when I got a handle on my stress and I made peace with my inner critic. I lost 20 pounds and I've kept it off for 5 years without making any major changes to how I was eating. So food may not be the culprit when we're dealing with health and wellness issues. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy this type of content, I invite you to join my intention circle by going to intendwell.us. Once a week, Friday morning, I send you a newsletter with content. I don't fill up your inbox, and I don't sell your information. And I make it really easy to unsubscribe if after a few weeks or months you decide this isn't the information that you want to be keeping up with. Thank you again for your time. I appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. You know, the comments and the questions that I've gotten from other videos, that's really the inspiration for this one. So I appreciate that very much. And I look forward to hearing what you have to say about this one. Take care, my friends. Intend well.